committee members and anyone out there watching.
Got 2 committee members, huh?
Yes, we will have, we have Ed and Valerie via Zoom, and I know that Rich Levy cannot join us today. So we have a few less people in the room, but most people present. And good morning out there. The first, who am I hearing?
I think it's Ed.
Oh, is that?
Good morning, I'm here.
Oh, yes, I see your smiling face, although you're frozen.
Ah,
you
there you
are.
are.
Hey,
There you are.
Looking more local.
Yes.
yeah, I'm in Falmouth.
Oh, okay. Thank you for taking the time to come in on Zoom. Also, Valerie. So the first item to discuss on the agenda is this upcoming meeting on November 9th that the Select Board is having. And I believe the Wastewater Advisory Committee will be there. Is that correct, Judith? And the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners. And I've been trying to get a really good idea on what they would like from us. And I'm assuming that it would be maybe just a brief update on maybe some of the primary concerns of the committee or water quality trends.
I think very brief, because in
Yes.
addition to their regular agenda, they're also doing the second part of the Finance 101 training
And I was told.
and this. So this, I mean, yeah, they're going to
Yes,
appreciate
right.
very brief.
Well, I was told 10 to 15 minutes, so
Oh, okay.
I know that
For this whole agenda topic or for our committee?
for us, just us.
all right.
That's what,
All right.
sometimes that was what.
Mixed messages.
Well, that's what I got from Andrea a while back. Now, but originally, the whole meeting was going to be related to water, and now things have changed. So
Right.
I was hoping Michael might be here to give us a little bit of,
I
Guy-
think that's changed, Judy, and I think,
Okay.
I mean, you can be back in touch with Andrea, but my impression from this is very brief.
okay. So at least as far as, my opinion is that we should take that time to ask, anything that we need Select Board to act on. And of course, on the top of my list would be the Baker Pond Management Plan recommendations, and also to get an idea of where things are with Crystal Lake, Pilgrim Lake, and that management plan, those recommendations. And I'm sure that the other people that are in the room will be able to answer some of those questions. We had recommendations in both our letters, that involved engineering cost estimates, and then we gave them the recommendations on two-stage approach for Baker Pond, notification for Brewster, things like that. I don't think that's happened, but
Yeah, I think I would feel that we really shouldn't be finalizing those recommendations until we've had input from Brewster, and that we really need to talk to Brewster about this before. I think the Select Board is not going to want to take any action, and I think they're going to feel like, until this has been discussed with Brewster, it's just kind of a pending topic.
well, we need the Select Board to know that they need to take action, that is hanging out there. So
Right.
they need to get that ball rolling. I think George Meservey was the person that we identified that should.
Yeah, and so,
Okay.
as an example, George, John Kelly, Kevin, and Ginny Farber all met with Eastham 2 weeks ago to get the ball rolling on Nauset Estuaries and the next steps for that piece with the Wastewater Management Advisory Committee. So I think this is similar, and I think it's on, I mean, again, not that it can't be reiterated, but I just think that the committee, wastewater committee has kind of put that to one side in terms of next steps until we know where is Eastham, what are they going to be doing? Because otherwise you actually run the risk of Orleans not doing our share, or perhaps one could almost argue worse, Orleans doing more than our share, and therefore taking the burden off another town to do their share.
Right.
So I think this is an important, the really big next step with Baker is to get Brewster, too many Bs, get Brewster to the table to talk about that pond, what its condition is, what our recommendations are, and to get them on board as well.
Right.
Well, when we talk about talking with Brewster, what entity in Brewster, I think we need to be more specific and figure out who we're talking to, because if,
They have a natural resources.
Yeah, I think that was
Okay.
clear. It was George Maserby was going to
Okay, that's
contact Chris Miller.
great, but I just,
The question is, did it ever happen?
Yeah, I don't think it has yet, so.
So that's what we need to say.
That's
yeah,
what
we need to find out.
Right, we need to find out because, there were there's timing involved here, where we recommended that if it was going to take more than 5 years, that there were interim. We had a two-stage approach, if you recall, for Baker Pond, to buy time, because it will take a while, I'm sure, for Baker Pond to, if it is, the sewering that we recommended ever happens, it's going to be a long time, I'm sure. So we had, recommended a two-pronged strategy for immediate water quality improvements, either alum or, alum was the one that we highlighted here. And then the long-term goal of sewering those, I think it was 10 up-gradient properties for Baker Pond. I know Brewster owns a very tiny piece of Baker Pond, but the watershed that's coming into Baker Pond is all coming from Brewster, so it's an interesting dynamic there.
Most, not all.
Yeah, I didn't say all of it, I said a lot of it. And then Crystal Lake is still, in my mind, now maybe there are answers, I don't personally know them, but we had made recommendations also there for interim versus, until they can sewer the upgradient properties there. And I don't know, we asked that they request a review of potential sewer layout and associated costs from the current CWMP consultants, AECom.
That's being handled through the wastewater management.
Oh, I know, but I don't know what the status is my point.
I'll report on it.
Huh?
I'll report on it.
Okay, all right, well, but I personally
We've
don't.
got a rep.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Yes, I do know that, but
Okay.
I'm saying for me, I don't know. And again, I think we had a timeline, if it was going to be more than 5 years, where we further recommended that the select board support either alum treatments or aeration systems in both lakes. So I'd like to get an idea on where things are at this point on that. And I guess, just one sec. And then, of course, if there's some way that we could create a really nice, short, simple summary, visual summary of water quality trends, maybe just target the lakes that we are, freshwater lakes and ponds, and maybe some specific marine estuarine areas, so that they can see. I mean, I've always liked this one for Crystal Lake, which is for Secchi Disc, and a simple graph that shows the trend is going in the wrong direction for water clarity over the years. Something that
Yep.
leaves that message that things are not, in some cases, not getting better and are not going in the right direction. Those are just my feelings for like key things. There are other things that our committee probably needs. I talked with Carolyn briefly. Our equipment is really old, 23 years old, and some of it needs replacing. That's sort of budgetary stuff, but I did speak with George Maserby briefly about that. He'd like to know what we need so that he can make sure it's covered in the budget, since we don't have our own budget anymore. Mary?
That's a good one, and so I, just throwing out two, and it may be that this meeting is packed, so we don't have time to talk to it, but we could at least flag the issues of things we'd like to discuss with the select board or other appropriate committees in the future. And to me, I was wondering if two might be, one, the town just rather remarkably passed the the fertilizer ban, just, and and so now it goes to the State House, and that will be a lengthy and perhaps uncertain process. And so I think regardless of what will happen in the future, I personally hope, that the petition is approved and, we proceed, but, others may not. But I think whatever happens at the State House, we should move apace to educate the public on fertilizer use. And I think we should engage with the town and ask them, to work with our committee and also some of the nonprofits in the area. I think I know OPC has expressed interest in engaging on this. And I think frankly, some of the outside groups will need some town assistance, like with printing cost or just a coordinated effort on the information, the message, and the budget to get stuff out to the public about what to do and how best to communicate it. So, maybe that's a separate meeting, but we could say we'd like to work on that with them in the future.
Yeah.
And I think there will be a separate meeting also, but right now, yeah, I agree with you, and I would also include some of the businesses in town, because
Definitely.
there's a lot of knowledge and potential resources there, too. Yes?
But on the flip side, there's a lot of, it was really hit home at the town meeting, to me, how much misinformation is still commonly floated around on the issue. So I think factual information, not necessarily supported in that document or vehicle, because they're going to people will glaze over if we start throwing in specific data. But I think we need solid data, solid information with referencing where we get it, because people haven't yet.
Right, and I agree with you. I also feel that because it could potentially take up to 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, for this to marinate through the state process, that I don't think Orleans should wait to maybe, it's been a long time since we've had a big educational campaign. Maybe the Blue Book can be revised also, but I think that it's time maybe, and this committee could play a big part in that, to inform citizens. We have a lot of new citizens in town.
Right.
On water quality and the impacts of nutrients on our water bodies and everything. So,
And my other thing, and you referenced this, the equipment needs for the water
Yeah.
quality sampling, but I wonder, we were talking at our last meeting about how some of the sites have gotten fairly difficult to access, and so is there any, and I don't know the answer to this because I'm a new water quality sampler, not an experienced one like some around the table, but, is there any assistance from the town that would help us carry out this program better? I think, we could at least flag that as a future discussion, like, do we need a boat at certain locations? Do we need easier access? I don't know what it is. Do we need some town staff to help do something, which they may not be able to provide? But, what do we need to carry this out most efficiently? And some people like Judith, who've been doing it for a long time, probably know the answers to that. But it just seems like it's worth flagging if there's anything we do need to make the program work better.
That's interesting. I had actually not thought about the actual act of sampling or those logistics, although I will say that over the years, the harbor master has been
Yes.
extremely helpful.
That's good.
In the early days, it was the really dangerous, difficult locations. I can remember going out with Judy and the harbor master doing the inlet to Nauset. That used to be
very gnarly.
really,
Very gnarly at times. yes.
that was white knuckled, even when the
Right.
harbor master was driving the boat,
Wow.
And we don't do that station any longer. But even now, they have been very good at trying
Yes.
to add support.
That's great.
But I think most of the towns, I think all the towns actually, do use volunteers for the actual sampling because of the fact that this is just so inordinately expensive for the town to provide the staff to go out to these locations is just, on a regular basis. It's
too
just,
much.
it's too much. It's
Yeah, I
impossible.
get that.
In the organizing side of it, however, we have always not we, Carolyn and Judy have always done that. I've stepped in the last couple of years to assist a little on this, but this is it's a huge undertaking, and this is mostly sitting at a computer and getting things organized and keeping track and inventorying equipment, and it's the kind of thing that the other towns do have staff doing this.
Correct.
And, I for one think that would be a very helpful thing.
Yeah, I
Can we
think,
keep doing it? Possibly, maybe, but it's hard.
I think it points once again to the fact that we need to have a town staff member or department that we don't have to do some of this work, because there's a reason why the other towns do have it.
Right.
That I think, the fact that we've done it well so far is doing us no good at all, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's the kind of thing we should
Never
fail
thought of
at.
it that way, but if we did a bad job, then maybe they'd do something.
Really, so they're kind of skating by on our success.
Do you want to comment, Ed?
I think it's
besides-
Valerie, but,
Oh, is that Valerie? I can't tell on the
No.
acoustics.
well, her box lit up in yellow. That's
Oh,
the
okay.
I didn't catch.
I was chuckling.
Oh, okay, it was, all right. I'm back to Ed's
Bizarre language.
frozen image there. There he is. Other comments?
The only other thing I personally would like to hear, and you explained last week very clearly, but my feeble brain still got lost, in the sewering phases and where we are now and what the realistic timeline estimate is for the rest of it.
So
Because,
that's not yet known.
well,
It's not yet known. So the
Any of
next,
it?
the next steps, that's why the wastewater advisory committee was established.
okay,
That's the next step.
okay.
So the wastewater advisory committee is now pulling everything apart, looking at the CWMP, the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, where it needs to be revised, what seems to be the most urgent next steps for revision of that, how we're going to get PRBs evaluated, and how that will then fit into next steps for soaring.
Okay.
What other alternatives might be available out there? And I think most of them, we all kind of intuitively have a feeling about, but it needs to be a public process. So yeah,
And it needs to
oysters
be,
have worked beautifully in Lonnie's because of that specific location. Even with that, they've only taken care of a quarter of what needs to be removed. When you start looking at other salt ponds in the town, it's probably not going to be feasible, frankly, to even get a quarter removal with oysters. That's just, so carry on at Lonnie's, that's great, it's a wonderful thing. But the entire plan was based on oysters and denitrification septic systems, along with some PRBs for the rest of the town beyond Soaring Meeting House in downtown.
aha.
So I think mostly thanks to the work that was done by Brewster, and again, this is why I say we really need to talk with other towns. This just can't be an Orleans effort. But the work that Brewster did, pursuing the alternative septics with the the Cape Cod Extension Service, George Hoyfielder and his whole thing there testing them out, and DEP and what's going to be required in monitoring, and what levels are going to be required in terms of using an alternative septic as part of your wastewater plant. all of those things came together to show that alternative septics are probably the most expensive way forward for a wastewater plant. So, I think that's sort of known and that's been done, but that still needs a public process of being reviewed to say, okay, in the plan, what areas were those going to take care of? Because now that's not going to be feasible. So now we need another. And is that other, I think, and again, this is just one person's opinion, I don't speak for the entire committee. I think we're at a point where probably we're down to PRBs and soaring. But also, we're dealing now with data and a condition of 20 years ago, because that's when the MEP data was based on, Mass Estuaries Project, for determining how much nutrients had to be removed. So that needs some refreshing and updating.
And we have much of that information.
We have some of
within
it.
our
Some
committee.
of it has
is
been updated.
additionally done. The Pleasant Bay Alliance has been pushing forward on getting a lot of the additional information
Yeah.
that's needed for the Pleasant Bay systems. Some additional benthic studies, some additional studies that are upcoming on natural attenuation for Muddy Creek, Tar Kiln, and Poche Marsh. So all of those things then will get fed in, and there will be a system for updating that, and then seeing, okay, so if Harwich is removing more, then maybe Brewster is doing less, and then how does that change the percentages for Orleans? It's this big thing.
But then,
So a similar process has to be put in place for Nauset Estuaries, for Town Cove and Nauset Estuaries with Eastham and Rock Harbor. So that then will all come in.
We don't have
So
a
all of
TMDL
these
either.
pieces, when we have the information and as we progress, and I'll try to keep the committee well apprised of what we're doing, where we are, and so you know what's coming up. Big discussion this week, Thursday morning, 10 o'clock, on Nauset Estuaries and the meeting with Eastham. And there was a surprise there with Mill Pond. I mean, lo and behold, when we went back and read and looked at the Mass Estuaries Project report for Mill Pond, it seemed to show that this was a severely degraded pond, and yet it showed no need for removal. And we all
Ignored it.
went,
They ignored it.
what?
head scratcher.
Head scratcher. So now we're going back and trying to look at that. I think this was probably just an oversight or an error. I don't know, but
that-
we'll look at it.
But that brings up my question about this, is what can we be doing now, sort of in parallel to your putting the Tinker Toys back together a new way, to be ready when somebody says, oh, well, what extra information do we need about Mill Pond? Or about some other freshwater pond that I can't think of that's
So
severely
For
impacted near our
sure,
waterway?
that will come back to this committee from the Wastewater Management Advisory Committee, much the way information will get fed to the Water and Sewer, or to the Board of Health, I mean, to all these different
But what
town
can we do
functions.
now?
This
other
minute, I
words-
would say that probably it would be to continue a robust water sampling project, as we're doing, to monitor these. I think education, both, I mean, at this point, it's more general education, and when I say general education, I'm always amazed how many people out there have not a clue how nutrients go through groundwater, what the groundwater basins of Orleans are, where you live, where your house is, what does your septic system, fertilizer, yard practices, which water body do you impact? I mean, I live on a freshwater pond. I have zero impact on that. I have huge impact on Pleasant Bay. Because of the
everybody
way
assumes-
groundwater, right, because of the way groundwater flows, I mean, not that that says, okay, I don't have to be concerned about what I do on my property. I don't mean that, but I mean,
I know.
it's important that people have a real understanding of where they are in this geography that is our town, and how it impacts, how they specifically impact on our waterways. We did a lot of work on this 15, 20 years ago.
We did.
But as you pointed out, it's lots of new people. People don't get it. They don't understand it. So therefore, until they do have sort of an understanding of this, they're not really going to understand why they're being asked to spend all this money on SOARS or alum or whatever it may be that is going to be used to improve our waters. So,
I think
Yeah.
you've just stated the biggest job of ours and the towns
Well, it's in our
going
charge.
forward. It
It's
is,
in our charge.
it is,
And
but I
it's-
think,
it's that piece too of graphing and visually depicting. Because that's huge. I mean, I go out sampling all these different places every time I'm out on a waterway. Somebody at the landing, some abutter to the pond, somebody that's on the beach turns to me and says, "So, what's the water quality like here?"
what do you
People
say?
want to see it.
Well, I
I
think.
mean, it doesn't help to look at a whole table of numbers. That doesn't tell them anything. They want to look at this and go, "Oh, okay, that's really bad," or "That's good to know."
So literature and also maybe a public workshop where then people can either attend the workshop or they can always get it on demand.
Yep.
You know, we have resources, we have scientists, we have all that available to us, so.
But even on our website, again, the graphs like you're showing there, Judy, I think that's just huge. We don't
Yeah.
have that now. We don't
Right.
have the ability to show people
Yeah,
this.
I think one of the problems is, and I understand it completely, that people don't know what they don't know. And if we're trying to educate people and assume that they have, and I'm using the terms incorrectly here, but I think you'll see where I'm going, that they have a reasonable understanding of water movement and they've got a high school level understanding. But we assume starting that they know something.
Yes.
But really, we need to start back assuming they have a kindergarten understanding.
Carolyn?
The problem is that most of the people who live here came from someplace else.
Well, that's a
And
big piece of it.
The hydrodynamics of Cape Cod are so different from anywhere else they might have come from. They all bring their own baggage with them, and it's all wrong.
Exactly. Exactly.
Probably true.
But of course it is, because they don't know that this place is that different.
Well, it's a sole source aquifer, and that's what makes, things.
Well, that's one of the many
Well,
things.
that's-
Yeah,
that's
and
a
it's
key-
also
key
the
thing.
very sandy soils that, I
Right.
mean, that's really key to the whole mess with fertilizers and land use.
That too.
Yeah.
But it's like we're trying to come in at too high a level.
So I totally support the idea of sort of how do we engage with the town on education, both about the fertilizer, reducing fertilizer use, and also what people need to know about, protecting the waters of Orleans. But I feel like this topic, and I think I was actually the one that raised it at the last meeting, is like, where are we in the grand master plan of wastewater? But that's such a big topic. I think if we have 10 minutes, we just can't get into that.
No, I know.
Exactly.
No, so I wanted to drill down on very concise, what do we want their takeaway to be from us? Carolyn, were you done with your thoughts? I'm sorry.
Oh, but I lost it for the moment. Mary, if you'd pull your microphone towards you,
Oh, sure, sorry.
and I could hear you. Thank you.
So okay, I wanted to make sure you
Oh,
were,
I know, back to Mill Pond.
right, I was something about Mill Pond, and I was curious.
When the report for Nauset Estuary and Town Cove came out, and there were recommendations for the downtown area, et cetera, and Mill Pond stuck out as being in terrible condition, yet no recommendations. And there was actually a hue and cry from the people who live out there. What about us? I asked the SMAS staff, I don't remember exactly who I asked, but probably Ed, okay, what about Mill Pond? And I think I didn't get a clear answer on that, and it's so long ago, I don't even remember what the answer was, but I think it was, that's so far into the future that is not part of the recommendations of this report.
But when you read the recommendation, when you go back and read that report, it's just really, it's peculiar almost. There's a whole table that shows acceptable, unacceptable,
Yeah.
et cetera. And despite that, then the conclusion at the end of that table shows nothing to be done for Mill Pond. So you may be right. That may have been an intentional oversight or saying, okay, we're just going to push this to the back burner. It's not clear from the report. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it was an oversight. Because
Well,
The point is, it isn't there.
it isn't there. And
was-
we need to look at it further, is
there was
the,
a hue and cry from all the people who live in that general area.
Yep.
And the problem is that the houses that overlook Mill Pond have been upgraded to large.
when they started on a duck farm, I mean, let's get real.
Yeah.
about it.
And we also need to take the growth pattern of the entire town, and, I mean, there are houses being built, are upgraded everywhere.
Yep.
And so the figures that we had in 2000 no longer apply.
Right, the
Right, and
watershed assessments that looked at impervious surfaces and all that stuff, yeah.
Having just recently witnessed a soil perk test,
Oh, yeah, that was amazing.
I think we need to find out when there's going to be one of those happening and actually video it. Because I was astounded at the rate at which water went down this particular hole. 24 gallons disappeared down a hole this big in seconds.
She's talking about her property.
Your own.
On
Yeah, but
Town Cove.
it doesn't need to be part of this. I think we could do it
Well,
in
no,
several,
but,
several parts of town, and maybe where we know there's a clay layer, and maybe where there isn't a clay layer, and just, because it graphically demonstrates how fast surface waters that get past the root zone.
So that was
Head toward
one,
the-
I mean, there were a number of things in the original plan, in the original comprehensive wastewater management plan. There were a number of factors that determined what should be priority and what should be considered in terms of a sewer plan. And one of them, of course, was nutrient controls. I mean, that's a no-brainer. That's why we're sort of getting into this. A second one was being able to direct growth where you wanted to be able to direct growth. And when I say growth, it would be things like greater density, say for affordable housing, and where you wanted to direct that kind of increased density towards your downtown areas. So that was another reason for doing it. Looking at where are septic systems not working? Or where do we have a lot of failed septic systems? So that you could then hopefully, in the bigger picture of where money is being spent, regardless of by whom, you could address some of those. One of the things that we all noted that was, I thought, sort of unfortunate, the single most expensive place in town to put a septic system, the absolute costliest, is Nauset Heights, because it's all clay layer. And they're all very tiny, I can't say they're all tiny, there are many very small lots in Nauset Heights because they had been developed long before zoning, and they started as little cottage communities going way back when. Well, most of Nauset Heights, some of it is in the watershed to Mill Pond. Most of it is in the watershed to the Atlantic Ocean. So there is no indication to do any kind of soaring for that watershed. It's the last place that we would ever need to. And I hate to use that ugly expression, but the old engineer's adage of the solution to pollution is dilution. Okay. In this case.
There's an engineer in the room.
That has
Look out.
failed us on many, 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 am I wrong, Bob?
Oh, that's,
That's failed us on many occasions
Yes,
in
I've
terms
heard
of
it
water
too.
quality issues, but in the
Right.
case of, Nauset, that probably does hold true. But it was kind of ironic, even 20 years ago, where most of us were looking at septic replacement costs of something like $10,000 to $20,000, the folks in Nauset Heights were looking at $75,000 and $80,000. And I'm guessing that it's well over that. I mean, you're talking about complete excavations with soil removal and replacement. I mean,
And no land to put
huge,
them on.
huge, complicated. And so but that was one of the things that was, yeah, a problem. So we're still looking, again, we're going back, that's part of the CWMP, we're going back and we're looking at all these, we're getting Board of Health to talk to us about where are their problems with septic systems in Orleans today. We're sort of kicking all the tires and digging this all back up and looking at it again.
It seems to me over the last 10 years, the growth has not been in the downtown, obviously. It's been scattered all over town with houses being knocked down, new ones being built.
So interestingly, however, most of that growth has been controlled based on the nutrient control regulations.
Right.
So whether it's a tiny house or it's a big house, square footage doesn't create nutrients. People create nutrients.
Bedrooms
And
do.
generally speaking, well, even bedrooms don't, but generally speaking, it tends to be 2 people per bedroom. So where you've got, for the most part, if you've got a 4-bedroom house, I mean, it doesn't say that you can't pack 8 people into a 2-bedroom house. You can do it, but it's not common. Typically, a 4-bedroom house is going to be 8 people. So whether that house is 1,600 square feet and they're tiny bedrooms with very little auxiliary space, or whether it's now a 6,000 square foot house, it's still going to be limited to those 4 bedrooms if it's on that lot. So, which pretty much, again, you might be able to a little more comfortably pack a couple more people in there, but it's not a huge, big change. We pretty much have controlled the growth that should impact nutrients by the nutrient control regulations that were put into place to control growth. My own particular concern is what we didn't control and haven't controlled, that I worry about terribly is hardscape.
Is what?
Hardscape. So that doesn't have any effect on nutrients from septic systems. But where we now, every house that's going up now has huge amounts of hardscape. It's
You're talking
just
about
gotten
impervious surfaces?
impervious surfaces. Well, and not only that they're impervious, you have a huge patio, you've got a huge, a tennis court, a pickleball court, a fire pit that has granite benches and blah, blah,
And
blah,
lots
blah,
of
blah.
Swimming pool.
Even if those things do have the ability, many of them are drained into a well. So, okay, they're not causing erosion, but what happens is rainwater falls on them. They've been collecting animal waste, bird poopy, et cetera. Now, all of that gets washed up together, and even worse, if it goes into a dry well, it's going right into the ground and into the sandy soil and on into our groundwater. Whereas if it's going on to especially native, planted, undeveloped property, it's not. It's slowing down, it's being taken up by the roots of plants.
Right.
It's being denitrified, going down through the soil layers. I just think this is going to
Well,
be a huge.
We have changed the way water sheds off the land significantly. And I
Absolutely.
mean, one place that I can always think of when we talk about runoff and diverting flow and into water bodies is Uncle Harvey's Pond. I was over there this summer, and I can still see the copious amounts of water that washed down from Poche, going right into Uncle Harvey's Pond. And I filmed it one year. It was just incredible when I happened to be there right before a heavy rain event, and I could actually catch the plume of water starting to come down and go right into the lake. But you can see the washout there. It's still there.
It's on the list.
It's been on a list for how many years now?
I know, but
It's still there. I could see from what's in the drive there and all the sand, I could see it still doing that. So, anyway, did you have a comment, Bob?
Yeah, well, getting back to, what's presented to the select board, it would seem to make sense to, as you mentioned, get our recommendations out there but also from, what I'm hearing and still learning is that there's so much effort going on, but it's really hard to, get things together. There seems to be a lot of churn. So I'm thinking if we could list our priorities on what this committee needs and what coordination, is both economically with equipment or decisions from the town, it would be very, very helpful to present that in a real concise way. So we, try to get what we need.
Well said, Bob. Maybe we could actually, just have a one-page piece of paper.
Yes, I would like something with bullets that we could hand out at, for that meeting. Get it in the packet if we can get it.
If you make it part of the record and, we have that to
Needs
refer
and
to.
recommendations, yes, action items, whatever, but short, concise, top priority ones. They want to hear from us, I'm sure. And we're often quiet because we just kind of do what we're supposed to do here in this charge, but I don't think that they often know quite to what extent this committee, what we get involved in.
And there's significant, well, it's not really significant activity, but just some things that, if we could push forward to get the response from, or the interaction with Brewster.
Right.
Those engineering costs, estimates for sewering and things like that, if we can really get those on the front burner, then I think would spend less time
Some of
here
those
churning
things may be
through it.
going on, and we just,
Yeah, we don't know.
maybe Judith has an update, I don't know, but we'll hear from her later in the agenda on some of that.
Not on that one. I mean, that's just,
on that?
that's basically where it was before. It's just that George will agree to meet with Chris Miller from,
Okay, so one of
so
the
it's
things.
it's really back, George needs to come in and let us know what happened at that meeting.
Okay, and I know he would be very happy to do that, so that will be something I can do, is ask George to update us at the next meeting. He's very good at doing that in a way that at least I can understand. We're lucky to have him. Ed or Valerie, do you have comments to make? This would be on the select board meeting and what we want to present to them in the short
No,
time.
I'm good with what I've heard so far.
Okay,
Me too.
okay, Valerie. Ed, thank you. So maybe we can come up with a draft bullet list? That would be great. Circulate it, and then I can finalize it, have something to give them, and maybe a few things about water quality trends, just some short bullets on that too, so they understand why. And I will also talk to, I'll make a note here, I will talk to Andrea just to get maybe a little further clarification and direction from her on what they would like to hear.
How much time you've got?
Yes, because is the 10 to 15 minutes still is that what we're working on or not, So I will do that too.
Is that 10 to 15 minutes also going to need us to address our goals and objectives and our committee charge?
Well, that's the next item on the agenda, and I'm a little confused about that. I thought, there was an email chain from Andrea, and it was a little, for me, my fault, I just wasn't sure, it wasn't really clear to me. I tried to pull out what I thought they were looking for, but later George mentioned to me that he wasn't sure that it was directed at our committee, that maybe it was just certain committees and not, so I need to find out
So,
about that too, but regardless of whether it's directed towards us, this is a good exercise for us to do. So,
I had attended that meeting, not for
Oh.
this committee, but for Ginny Farber.
For
She asked
Conscom,
me to
correct.
step in for Conscom because she couldn't be, she usually goes
Right.
to that meeting and couldn't. So as I was putting that together, and Andrea was clear, this was every committee. I mean, it was
Okay.
all the committee chairs that were meeting, and I didn't have the feeling, Judy, that this tied in at all to this November 9th meeting. And I
Somewhere
may
in-
be wrong,
Well,
but I
somewhere in
don't
the
think.
email it said that it was that date, so that, again, I'll ask her for
Okay, so you can double
clarification.
check on that. But she was just, yeah, she basically, as you've indicated, she wanted to make sure that every chair had shared the charge of the
Right.
committee with their committee, and that all the committee members knew their committee charge. So that was one of her concerns. And, I mean, I'm sitting there in my head thinking, well, of course. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Of all the committees that I've served on, it's probably been a long time since I looked at the charge for any of them. So it was a good thing to raise. Then she said something that was a total surprise to me, which was all committees are to have 3 or 4 goals that the committee has determined as a group, and those goals are to be posted on the webpage on the town website. And I scratched my head and said, what webpage and what
I know,
goals?
I know.
So that's shame on me. I mean, I'm
Well, I know
being honest
I
here.
know we're on the website and have a webpage, but the goals thing.
They're there.
The goals are there?
Yeah. What? Yeah.
I
Our
don't think-
committee charge is there.
yes,
committee
Some of
charge.
those, but some of those include what
Well,
our
some,
goal, I mean,
well, some of our
they don't
charges are
say
goals.
these are
Well,
our
the-
goals, but they
Well,
are
but that's
our
what she's
goals.
saying. I mean, everyone's supposed to read the charge, and then as a group, we're supposed to sit down and determine what our goals are. And so that, I think, would be, to organize the estuary sampling prior to the next sampling, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but see,
But that would be, we're supposed to have specific goals lined up.
But see, that's weird to me, because to me, that's an objective. I mean, after having had to write way too
It's
many
usually
of
goals and
these
objectives.
I know.
in education, the goals are the lofty,
Long-term.
long-term, sort
So
of angels
maybe-
coming down from heaven when we get
Maybe
it.
that again.
things.
So our poor chair is
So-
going to have a long conversation with Andrea to find out what
I
it
think
is
so.
that she wants.
I mean, normally, in other strategic planning exercises I've been involved in for the state and et cetera, you have long-term objectives and you have annual performance goals. I mean, that would be a normal approach.
Yeah.
Like this year, we're going to focus on these 3 or 4 more near-term objectives. Or it could be more, it could be less.
Right. Of course, our charge is sort of, kind of outlines our goals, but
Yeah,
goals are more specific to maybe we impose some timelines on us to get things done as far as annual objectives.
It's interesting, like some of the goals, like alerting the town to outside funding opportunities. I mean, I was thankful that you reminded me what our committee charge was and sent this to me. I read it in preparation for this meeting. I mean, I don't remember us spending a lot of time talking about that. I haven't been combing various email lists and state website. I haven't really been working on
Read the
that.
CZM one.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I get a lot of those, but I haven't been focused on that as a role of this committee, so,
I think it really refers to, if we're made aware of some grants, state, local, or federal grants, maybe the town, I mean, I know the town tracks, I'm sure they deal with Commerce Business Daily and they track the CZM website and stuff, but maybe there's something we hear about that the town is not aware of, and there's a grant opportunity there, at least to make them aware of it, whether it's road runoff or, I've done that myself, just because
Okay.
I read
You
that.
Send them on to
I
George.
usually forward it to George or Tom Daly, saying, is this, or Nate
that's
Sears.
great, that's great.
Does it apply? Well, that's just because of when I used to work at Patel, I used to be responsible for screening the Commerce Business Daily and passing leads to all the senior scientists for things that they might want to pursue, but that's why that's in there. There might be something through the Mass Bays program that slips notice that maybe people don't know or something like that.
but looking at our charge here, we've kind of buried the goals. because they're really kind of in 4
Yep.
and 6, except the way it's worded makes it sound like, oh, just something we do in one meeting and then check off the list and send it on to the select board.
I don't-
In
I don't
identifying
interpret it that
problem
way.
areas, researching the solutions, reviewing the external reports, and, keywords, recommending steps for remediation. If we get that, I feel like we've met one of our big goals. That's what we do. We just do it over and over for various problem areas.
Well, certainly, number one is a primary function of this committee, and those are our, coordinating the town's monitoring programs, the fresh and the marine.
Right.
Those-
But that's how we meet the goals.
Right. But Judith, if your sense is that it has nothing to do with November 9th, I'm not going to panic over it right now.
That was my sense, but I
I will try to find out more about that. And Ed Hafner did give me a list of things that he thought. Ed, do you want to speak to that, or I have your list printed out, but, I mean, limiting nitrogen and phosphorus pollution is our number one. It started with your list, and then it went on. You had A through H.
You can read it. I'm in a busy spot and don't want to really talk too much.
Okay, all right, I got you. So Ed's comment, as I said, was limiting nitrogen and phosphorus pollution is our number one. Then he lists sewering, help establish phase 3. Ed, you're probably referring to things that weren't in the original plan, is that, I guess you can't really talk, but fertilizer question, getting some additional expert testimony and recommendations from technical resources. Management plan implementation for ponds, which we've just talked about already as being one of the things we want to maybe bring up on the 9th for Crystal and Baker, Pilgrim. Monitoring program with volunteers, he writes, get young ones with boats.
There you go.
Public awareness education on water issues, we've been discussing that today. I think we all agree on that as being a really important thing for us to pick up the pace and maybe get more involved with doing. Site visits, new member education, select board welcome. He just sort of jotted his thoughts down, so I'm sure when he